Well, hello, Shiny Crafty People. It's Totten here, and welcome back to the channel. So I want to talk to you about what I think causes a lot of people not to get into sewing or quilting, or maybe not to pick it back up after it's been a while. And those are 9 lies that brand new sewers either tell themselves or they've heard in popular culture, and they need to be fixed. So I'm going to break down the 9 ones that I think are the worst, that stop people from getting into sewing or maybe picking it back up after many years. Let's get into it. Number 9 is the idea that sewing is just for little old ladies. Well, I don't know many little old ladies with a full beard and a lovely bald head, and I will tell you that I've been sewing for more than 35 years. Sewing is not just for little old ladies. Now, it seems to be done a lot of times by our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, but this is a skill that they have passed on to many different people, and they can pass it on to young people, including young men and women and everything and everyone in between. Now, here's the deal. I learned how to sew when I was 15 years old from my grandmother's because I wanted a Star Trek costume. And yes, I was the cool kid in school, obviously. I didn't think I wanted to learn how to sew, but they weren't going to make it for me. They made me learn. And what I found out when I sat down at that sewing machine is this thing, it's over here on the side, it's just a power tool for fabric. It literally was like working with my father's welder or my uncle's circular saw. This is a somewhat dangerous machine if you don't know how to use it, but it can help you make some of the most amazing things. So don't allow your age, your gender, your position in life to decide whether or not you can get into sewing. Number 8, and I hear this one a lot. Well, you have to have some big fancy sewing machine to get started. Are you kidding me? The reality is, for the first thousands of years that people sewed, there were no machines. In fact, machines weren't invented until just a little while ago. All you needed was a needle and some thread and a little bit of fabric. And some of the most amazing pieces of clothing and fabric design was created by people with just those 3 things: needle, fabric, and some thread. Unbelievable. You do not need the fanciest machine. In fact, I just did a video earlier on my channel, and I'll link it in the description below. You should be able to click the little more button or the title of this video, and it'll bring up a link to the best sewing machines under $200, where I reviewed several of them. You don't need a lot of expensive machinery, if any, to get started. Now, that being said, a sewing machine does make things go a whole lot faster. And if you want to make it like a little easier, some of the expensive ones do really have lovely tools, but it's not necessary. Number 7 is along the same line, and that's that you have to have a dedicated sewing room. Really, this is not the case. I have met people who sewed on their dining room table. They sew in a guest bedroom. They sew in a laundry room with the sewing machine sitting on top of the washing machine. Any place that you can find a little bit of space to carve out for your own, you can make it your sewing space. And that means that maybe you've got to wait until the dinner is cleared before you can lay out a new quilt top that you're working on. Or maybe you're gonna get down on the floor and cut out patterns. It does not matter. You do not have to have a fancy room, and you shouldn't wait until you have that fancy room to really follow something that you might love doing. Number 6 is the idea that hand sewing is a dying art and people don't need to know how to do it. Oh my goodness. Like I said earlier, hand sewing is all you have to do. You don't have to have a sewing machine. Learning how to hand sew is not a dying art. It is a vital part of sewing. Now, I don't love to hand sew. I avoid hand sewing as much as possible, but I still learned how to do it. And you'd be surprised the number of things that you can much faster hand sew than pulling out the sewing machine. Hand sewing is going to help you learn how to put buttons on to replace a button on a shirt or a pair of pants or something. It can help you figure out how to hem pants quickly. Hand sewing lets you close up a pillow at the end with a beautiful hidden ladder stitch, and you will be so amazed. No one will ever be able to find where you close up that pillow if you learn that vital, simple technique. Hand sewing is completely valuable, and I encourage everyone to do it. Number 5 should be the one that you have to get out of your head, and it's the lie I hear most often. Everything is so perfect when you look at good sewers, people who've been sewing for a while. They must be perfectionists, and you shouldn't even try sewing, or more importantly, quilting, unless you're a perfectionist. This is a huge lie, because great quilting doesn't mean every point lines up all the time. That is not the measure of a great quilter or a great quilt. It is not about perfection. It is, of course, wonderful if you try your best, and you try to get it as close to perfect as you can if that's important to you. But I got to tell you, of the two grandmothers that helped me to learn how to sew, I had one of them who really cared about perfect points and the other one who did not care at all. It was not important to her. She, in fact, actively, I think, tried to not make points line up. Her style was so all over the place. And it's one of the things I love about one of her quilts, because when I see one of her quilts, I know exactly who made it. I know that my Grandma Crow, Juliana was her given name, her first name, that she made that quilt. And I love it even more because she didn't aim for perfection. She aimed to get it done and into the hands of somebody who could use it. Number 4 is one that I hear a lot, is this idea that you have to follow patterns correctly and exactly every time. You know, a pattern is lovely. It can really help you to make a project. But what if the pattern isn't exactly perfect for what you need? You make a pair of shorts and you realize that your hips are a little bit wider than the pattern provides for. Maybe you're quite narrow and that pattern is sort of designed for everybody, which is, you know, not any pattern, obviously. Well, you can adjust it, you can change it. If there's a part of that pattern that doesn't make sense to you or is really hard and fiddly to do, change it. If the pattern wants you to have a floating piece of elastic all through a waistband, but that's uncomfortable for you to do and you'd rather the elastic be held more closely in place, stitch the elastic in. It's not gonna hurt. You can make the changes that you want. Patterns are guideposts. They're supposed to help you figure out how to get through a project, but they're just there as a tool. You can do what you need to them. Adjust the tools to fit your needs. Number 3 is that sewing is an expensive hobby. That doesn't have to be true. Now, number 2, I'm gonna talk about how much money you can spend, but in number 3, sewing does not have to be an expensive hobby. Not only can you get started by learning maybe from somebody who already sews, but the odds are they have a huge stash of fabric that they don't want anymore, pieces and parts, and they'll be willing to share it with you. In fact, I'll put a link in the description below again. I visited a craft and fabric thrift store called So Green in Rochester, New York. And you could go in there and buy really inexpensive fabrics that people are purging out of their stash. There is a way to get inexpensive fabrics. In fact, I'll also put a link in the description to my 5 unexpected places to find fabric and quilting and fabric and craft supplies, I think I said it was called. But imagine for a moment that you want to work on a project and you need a big piece of fabric. Well, the thrift store has sheets, inexpensive, and then you get enormous amounts of fabric. Imagine using an old sheet set to get big old pieces of fabric that you can practice and test on, or fabric you might really love and want to use in a project. It does not have to be an expensive hobby. In fact, it can be quite inexpensive, and it's something that you can share that experience with others. And once you've grown your own stash, you can then share it with others as well. Of course, myth number 2 is kind of the opposite of the last one, and that's that sewing can save you money. That is technically kind of true. People say all the time, oh, you should learn to sew because you'll save so much money. But in an era of fast fashion, where you can buy a shirt or a dress or a full suit for $3, $5, $10, $12, $15, I don't know how much it is exactly. I haven't been shopping a lot on Shein or Temu or those places, but we are in the era of fast fashion. I have gone to an H&M store and bought a really lovely sort of tailored evening jacket for less than 50 bucks, brand new. So the idea that you can make some of those things yourself cheaper is just not really true with the amount of the cost of fabrics and other things. Quilting is one of the most expensive things I've ever done. And think about it, like right now I'm working on this project with this gorgeous batik fabric as backing of a quilt. This was $13 a yard. And I needed 4 yards just for the back of the quilt. So that back of the quilt's already 50 something dollars. Not even figuring out how much I pieced the fabrics in the front to. So as much as you might think you can save money by sewing for yourself, I think what you really need to do is save money, quilt or sew for yourself, because it's a therapeutic hobby, something that you love doing, that you have pride in making something for yourself, that you can get exactly what you want and that you're willing to spend the money on it. And then the number 1 biggest lie or myth that I hear told to people all the time, or that new sewers think is just somehow true, is that you can't make money from sewing, that it can't become a career. Well, I gotta tell you what, I may not be the best example, but I learned to sew when I was 15. And some years later, when I was working in a funeral home, I decided to take a quilt and cut it up to fit to make a beautiful cover to go over the person that we were bringing out of their home where they had passed away. That sparked an entire company for me. And that's exactly what we do now. 25 years, almost 25 years later, we're the leading manufacturer of those type of products. And I have like 11 or 12 employees right now. Has spawned a fantastic career for me. But don't just take it from me. There are plenty of people who sew wonderful things and sell them at craft fairs or at vendor events. They also have Etsy channel, their own Etsy store, or maybe they sell on other social media. It is quite possible for you to make things and sell them and make money doing this, something that you love. Don't let anyone tell you that sewing is not something that you can make money doing. It's absolutely possible. All right, folks, those are 9 sewing lies that are told to new sewers or believed by new sewers that I think need to be debunked. I'm glad that you are here with me today. I'm gonna get back to sewing on this beautiful project. And until next time, folks, stay crafty. Bye for now. All right, well, I'd actually made a mistake on that earlier, but that's another myth. You can make mistakes even if you've been doing it for 35 years.